Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Alcott Germany II. We're going to be discussing his amazing book, Real World 101 Student Guide. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, pretty much all the regular online book resellers. Head on over there today, pick up your copies, and get lost in it. Now, in addition to that, people, there's a couple of things I want to mention. Now, for purchasing, again, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, can't get any bigger than there. But check out his personal website. It's called iDesignSolutions.org. There, you're going to find more information on Alcott himself and more information on his fantastic business endeavors as well. Now, when it comes to his book, not only is this something you need to pick up through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and get lost in because it is so informative, also be on the lookout for him. If you find yourself in the Los Angeles area come April, you're going to want to check him out at this year's book fair. Because I'm telling you, this is something you need to get behind. And I'm going to tell you why in just a moment. Before we go any further, though, I want to take this opportunity and point out that Alcott was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best publishers in the business. And people, if you follow us, well, you already know I'm talking about CITI of Books. So listen, for my writers out there, if you have gone through your process, you have spent some sleepless nights, I'm talking about some countless hours here, creating your masterpiece, and now you've done it. You are finally at the end of the road. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, although one thing you forgot is now that you've completed that masterpiece, you need help moving it. Well, if that's you, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give and contact CITI of Books. I'm telling you, they're one of the best in the business to do it, and this is exactly what they specialize in. So head on over to cityofbooks.com today and gather all of the fantastic ways that their team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure, as I mentioned, to have Alcott here on the line. Now, his book, Real World 101, is an informative self-help guide for young adults. But I'm going to tell you something, people, and I know he's going to be able to reiterate it and re-impress it later on because he's been told this already. Even though this book was created for young adults, well, I don't care what your age group is out there, this is a book for you. Okay, this is something that is going to help you enhance yourself. This book is just filled with so much information that it really is going to help you. And if you are a young adult, it's going to help you develop your story using the education you've received. I'm telling you, this book is layered. This book is nuanced. And this book needs to be on your shelf, okay? We're only going to scratch the surface here today. We're going to capture the essence of it. But by the time we've concluded, you're going to run and purchase your copies because you're going to realize how valuable of a book this truly is. And you're going to realize how valuable of a gift this book can be for others as well. Sit back, strap in, and have your notebooks ready. Alcott, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing outstanding, Benji. Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure being on your show.
Likewise. Well, listen, Alcott, the pleasure is all ours, man. Listen, I think what you're doing here is something that is so important that it can't be overlooked. When the opportunity arose to have you as a guest with us, we jumped at that because we understood, again, how valuable your book is, but also how valuable it's going to be for our listening audience. So thank you for writing the book. Thank you for being a guest here with us to discuss it. And let's jump right in, man. Before we go into those words on those pages, Alcott, tell us a little bit more about yourself, man. Who is Alcott Germany II?
Oh, wow, Benji. That's a loaded question, man. I'm humbled. I'm going to try to get this condensed down because I know we don't have a lot of time. Native Detroiter, born and raised, really had a chance to grow up in the community and just I sometimes walk the streets saying not just I'm a native Detroiter, but I am Detroit. Yeah. And so I'm just thankful for what the Detroit community has done for me and the surrounding suburbs of the Metro Detroit area. So grew up in downtown Medical Center, for all those who are familiar with that area. Graduated from Southfield High School, but also went to undergrad at the University of Detroit Mercy, where and this is where you may say, where the world, how did you get to being an author? My major at U of D was chemical engineering. So I'm actually a chemical engineering undergrad, and I have a master's in education with a specialty in curriculum and instruction. And so throughout that time, I had a chance to, of course, grow up in Michigan, but also I spent a lot of time in Southwest Georgia, where I really learned a lot about myself, and that really was where the Real World Project really started to grow into my heart. And so in that space, I've been in the automotive industry. I've worked in consumer products. I've worked with telecommunications, and I also currently work at Rocket Companies as a vice president. So really had a chance to grow into sort of a renaissance space, but in a lot of that tutelage, a lot of that awareness, a lot of that growth are the kind of things that I've inserted into Real World 101. So that's why I'm really proud of the project, because it marked a milestone in this journey, with a lot more years to come to try to keep making history in any way I can.
There you have it. People, that's a way to start an interview. My goodness. I'm telling you, given his background, I'm certain we could not have selected a more perfect embodiment of a person of distinction. This man is impressive. And when you look at the title of his book, Real World 101, well, you look at his resume, you see his experience. This man knows a thing or two about the real world. I'm telling you, this is something so informative for you. You need to run and pick it up. And Alcott, you are right, man. You posed it that I was going to ask the question, well, where does writing fit into all of this? I can't see myself going anywhere else, brother. I got to ask about inspiration here. Talk to us a little bit more about how this book came to fruition.
Yeah. It's such I got to bridge it as best I can, Benji. It was really about a message that was on my heart. So when I think about when I actually wrote this book, it was between the time I had already graduated from University of Detroit and moved to Georgia, moved south. I'd already had a lot of success in my career as an engineer in the automotive space, but the whole reason for me becoming a chemical engineer was to learn other disciplines. I was always the kind of person that sought out the why, and that was also something my dad, God rest his soul, impressed upon me as well. And so when I moved to Georgia, I knew of one person who I met in college, but I had no family in that town, Albany, Georgia. Shout out to the people in Albany, Georgia, who took me in as a community and made me a part of that community, and I grew a lot and learned a lot about myself. So this was like 2008-ish. Long story short, I always had a passion for education. Even as a engineering grad, I always tried to speak from an educator's perspective, and I think that's really what was the foundation of me having a lot of success as an engineer, because that wasn't typically the way an engineer spoke about innovation and design. And one of the things that I started to do in this community that was something that I started in Detroit but really grew into was speaking to communities and to schools. And I was invited. Just at the time, I was working at a company called Procter & Gamble. You may have heard of it.
Yeah.
And I was in the Albany, Georgia area, and I was speaking. I was invited by a friend of mine to speak at a high school and speak at a public school system of elementary school kids as well, and middle school kids. And in those moments, I really started to just talk about the questions that you have growing up as to what are you doing, the things that you're being asked to do for. And that's probably not the cleanest way of saying it, but when you're in that seat as a kid, as a teenager, and you're being told to learn algebra, you're being told to learn biology, you're being told to understand history, you can't help but wonder, what does this have to do with me?
Yeah.
Even when we talk about the history of culture, what does that have to do with me? And I really respected that question. I respected that question a lot. And I had a chance to really take it upon myself to process that and turn that into an arsenal for myself. And along the way, I saw other, whether they were my peers, whether they were people younger or older than me, you know, life takes you in different directions, man. And that sometimes it can consume you, and you make decisions that you may not be proud of later on. And so in that same vein, I really focused on relating to those stories as well. And long story short, Benji, there was so much energy and so much excitement around those public speaking. I didn't even really know the term public speaking in that way at the time, because I was just doing it to share and to help. And the energy from the students was amazing, the engagement. I even spoke at an at-risk school where I was warned that I might get run out the school because they don't, you know, typically receive public speaking all that well. And 3 hours later, they didn't want me to leave because the students had never been that engaged. And I was like, I think we got to go because they told me y'all didn't want me to be here. And they were like, no. And I didn't know I was getting a tour. But to answer your question, one of my colleagues, they were so taken back by what was taking place. I still hadn't thought about writing the book yet. And I hadn't even thought about writing the book at all. And she said, you know what? You should call and she was joking. She was like, you should call this like Real World 101 or something. And because of how the energy and how everyone in the audience was just so excited to talk about the world and what the world meant to them and versus what the world's going to do to them. And so lo and behold, I decided to move on from the 9 to 5 at Procter & Gamble. That's when I went to grad school, learned about curriculum and instruction, and I learned talking with other teachers from around the world. And they were talking about this need in education that I always had a passion for it, but I didn't know it was a need. That's when instructional design was something that I started to become more aware of. That's where instructional design solutions, I Design Solutions, comes from. I went on my own to say, okay, there's an opportunity for me to send a message and to carry a message. And so it was all about delivering the message. I said, how do I do that? And so I packed up. I actually left Procter & Gamble and moved in with my cousin, moved into her attic, and I wrote the book in her attic. And it was really about carrying the message, Benji. It was less about me having the dream of being an author and more about can't be everywhere all the time. And there's obviously a need out there, and this is the best way to get it out there. And I do have a passion for writing. I love writing. I've always had a fondness for science, mathematics, and writing. Those are probably my 3 most passionate subjects. But when I thought about the book and I wrote it, oh, say, how did you write it so fast? I actually wrote it in like 45 days.
Wow.
And it's like, how did you write it so fast? I'm like, because I've been writing it for 28 years in my heart. And so when I think about it in that regard, it just flowed. It just flowed. And, you know, being so humbled by this experience, I remember putting it in the hands of editors. And there were things that the editors were saying that I was totally in agreement with. And there were certain things that they were like, I don't know if you want to put this part in because it'll send this kind of message. I said, well, that's the exact reason why I want it in there, because that's exactly the message I want to send. And so that's why when, there's components of the book that really speak to some of those moments. But that's really how it came about. It was really about the message on my heart, not as much about me growing up one day wanting to be a published author. I honestly, the published author component was more of I don't want to say a means to an end because I have too much respect for, that aspect of creativity. But it was more of the mechanism of like, this is a message that I have to get out. And for all those listeners out there, I wrote this book 15 years ago. CITI of Books found me, and when they called me, I almost didn't believe them. Like, I didn't believe who they were. And when they said, we found your book on the Library of Congress, which I did. I had a registered copyright, but my engineering degree, one of the first things I did was protect the IP. I knew about patent law and things of that nature. So I'm like, okay, I did write this, and I probably would be registered with the Library of Congress. And the blessing in all of this was to hear their feedback that's as similar now as it was then, which was the lessons in this book still have so much untapped potential. And when they started to communicate with me what they took from it, that's when I started to believe who they were, because I'm like, you wouldn't know this message if you didn't read it.
Right.
And so that's really how it's in the short, compressed version of how this project, was birthed and why it still lives and why it still resonates with people. And so I look at this as an opportunity to rebirth a message that, people have been asking for a very long time.
I love that. People, I'm telling you, listen, Amazon and Barnes & Noble are where you got to go. But you can hear the passion in this man's voice, and it's enticing, right? It is so intriguing. It really does suck you in. But it's not just the passion in which he speaks, because once you pick up the book, you understand it's complimentary because it coincides with everything. It is so informative. It can help you move mountains. Again, I know it's directed towards students, it's directed towards young adults, but this is a book that surpasses a particular age group because the lessons found within it are something that you can implement in any particular day and time. I love it. Alcott, without further ado, man, let's go in a little bit more detail. You talked about the lessons found within the book, but we don't want to give it all away, right? People, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you got to pick up your copies. But since we have you here on the line, man, let's go in a little bit more depth. Real World 101 Student Guide. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I'll hit on a couple of things that, you may flick through it. First of all, it's intended to not be long because I'm not here to lecture the world. I'm here to challenge your thinking in ways that other people may not, and really force you to challenge yourself. I say this often: if you were to write a book report on this book, you would be the subject. It wouldn't be Alcott. It wouldn't be what the publishing company says you should take away from it. It would be you. If Benji Cole read this book, he would be writing about Benji Cole in his book report. And that's the voice in which it's written. It's written in the form of a conversation. Without getting too deep into the content, one thing you'll find is, and I do think this is some of the more important parts of the book, which are even the shortest parts of the book. If you open the book, the first thing it'll show is a dedication. And there's a lot of books that have dedications in them for an array of reasons, and they're all sound and great reasons. But I felt it was important to write in my dedication that this book was dedicated to everyone who taught me to believe in a better day. I was the type of person when I moved to Georgia, I didn't have any family that I knew of in the area, and I really started to just bond with community members, and I met people some were homeless, some weren't homeless. Meeting people from all walks of life, you just start to learn what life means for people and what that means to the message you can convey. Yeah. And so the many people who I've come across that have allowed me to be who I am and to have the confidence that I am, and now allow me to be a father. At the time I wrote this book, I didn't have any kids. But when you have a chance to meet people and understand journeys, you believe more in what your purpose can be. And that's really what that line was about. Like, when I wrote this book, I was writing it for everybody, even the ones who I don't even remember their names. They helped me write this message, and they helped me curate it in a way that allows me to connect with them. And when we were just talking on the street or when I was in a school, or when I was, in the workplace. And so that's one of the first pages that you'll get to. The next page is a letter to parents. Why did I put that in there? Because when I think about all of the young adults who need mentorship, this book doesn't have pictures in it like that. It's more about content. It's written in a way that's very creative, and shout out to CITI of Books to add more graphics and aspects to it. But, I really wanted parents of any age to understand when you give this book to someone, and like you said earlier, Benji, you don't have to have a teenager or a child that you hand it to. Even for yourself, I want you to know what you're getting yourself into. Mm-hmm. I want you to know what this is going to be about and what kind of ride you're going to be on before you start to dive into it and just think that you're, picking up another book. And that really is, to me, the foundational pieces. We can get into the other aspects of what's this for, what now, what next. Those questions are spawned from what people say in the classroom. The design of the book has a lot to do with how you doodle on your notebook sometimes, and try to you just start drawing pictures and you're like, why am I here? That was created for a purpose. It's send a message that I know what you're talking about. I know you probably think somebody's trying to give you a lecture. That's not what this is. But let me show you that when I was making this, or when I was going through a similar journey, I was the one doodling on the notebooks too, and drawing those pictures out there. And so as you look at the pieces of this book, you really start to embrace yourself and engulf yourself into what this means for you. And so those are the key components, that dedication, that letter to parents, the question of, what's this for, what now, and what next. You want to start asking yourself those questions before you run into a situation where you're forced to answer them and doing things you really didn't want to do. Right. There's a line that I see used a whole lot now, and it's a blessing to see it because you don't know how other people are going to take it. But what does success look like to, an educated mind? What does I have another line in there that has to talk about, or that brings up, how many parents do you want to have? Because the more you just choose not to educate yourself, the more power you're going to allow other people to have over you. And those aren't things you want. You want to be in a situation where you have a sense of control, you have a sense of purpose, and nobody's dictating that for you. But you still have to respect the process as well, because it's not just something that falls out of the sky. But don't let life or this world pass you by. And so I think those are the kind of things that people will find in this book. There's still a whole lot more I did not mention, and that's why I really want people to be able to take a ride for themselves. But man, going into this, these are the kind of things that you're going to stumble across. And I promise you, if you don't, they can hit me up wherever, because I would love to have the conversation to complement what they're getting themselves into when they go on this journey.
Alcott, I'm telling you, man, I am motivated. Okay, I am motivated. You know where you got to go. You got to pick up your books. But as we close out here, Alcott, I'm going to pose that question that you brought up. And I want to focus on the future now, man. We know about this amazing book. We know about your background. What's upcoming? What's on the horizon?
Oh, man. This is a big year. This is a big year, Benji. Mm-hmm. Excited for headed to Los Angeles to do a book signing in the International Book Fair in Los Angeles. I can't wait to be there. That's April 20th and 21st, 2024. Yeah. Really excited about that. And also, shameless plug, I got another one coming out, and I'm looking forward to getting that out, later this year. And I couldn't believe that when CITI of Books found me, they found me during the time where I was looking to finally enter the next chapter into bringing out I won't say a modified version. It's my evolution from real world. If you want to know what was next for Alcott and what lessons I have to share after creating this book, I'm looking forward to sharing that with the world later this year, God willing. So I'm really excited about that. I really am excited about re-energizing this project. I mean, I think the crux of this was there's so much untapped potential. There has never been a bad review of this book, and I say that in the most humble way I know how. I mean, and I didn't even know this until CITI of Books informed me of this. They said, Alcott, you not only have you had nothing but 5-star reviews that are publicly viewed on the website, but we see the comments that don't get posted, and they're also 5-star reviews. And which was what made us invest in this project. And so I really do want to use this time this year to put, really a second wave of energy and put my heart and soul into getting this book out to the world in probably the way it should when I was 28 with no resources, and I just wanted to make certain I put out a quality product. But now having the marketing support of this station as well as CITI of Books, I'm really excited about that. And the next chapter of this book, I really am putting a lot of emphasis on and getting that out as well. So, definitely more to come, more content to come, but really getting my presence out there so that not only am I sharing this book, but I'm sharing this message. And so I'm excited to be able to speak on the aspects of this book, speak on the aspects of leadership. That's really what my next project is going to be a lot about, is what I've learned as a leader, not just as, the student with the question. And the beauty of it is that they're both interlinked. A leader is just a lead student in the classroom. I've said that even in this copy. And so it's more of folks who've been asking who have already read this or who are asking for the next copy and saying, what else is there? Man, I've learned a lot over the past 15 years that I can't wait to share, that compliments and this first read. So this year is really going to be all about getting my voice out there, getting this book out there to all the people who didn't get a chance to, really cycling it into the fabric of our young adults who, have these questions and now they can carry that message for themselves and having discussions about it, man. I mean, to me, you hear this passion, I hope, seeing the airwaves, because it was so much about the message as much as it was, more than it was about the book. And so I would love to just embark on reawakening that energy. I've done a lot of public speaking initiatives when this book first came out the first couple of years, and to know that those questions are still out there, I in no way, shape, or form are going to shy away from that discussion now. It probably means more now than it did many years ago. And so I'm passionate, I'm energized, and I'm excited, man. So the Los Angeles Book Fair will be probably my first physical stop. But there will be more to come, Benji, I promise you. And, we're also looking, and dude, I couldn't believe this. I know we're probably running short on time. There's actually going to be a Spanish translation of this book coming out. We're going to look to not only translate it in Spanish, but also, I believe, Mandarin. And
wow.
That's mind-blowing to me. I couldn't believe when the opportunity presented itself to do that. So to actually have this book available in 3 languages it's nothing short of a blessing. And I'm excited about that. So this will not just be released in English. It will be released in 2 other languages and in the near future. So I believe by the time the Los Angeles Book Fair is out, the English and the Spanish version will be available. And so I'm really excited and blessed to be a part of that. And shout out to the marketing team at CITI of Books for even bringing that idea to me. I just couldn't be happier and more excited about it. And I'm going to do everything I can to get this message out because so many people need it. And I, like you said, could talk about this kind of stuff all day. And I want to share one story, and this is right before this was before City of Books called me, and I remember when I was doing this as an independent author years ago, and I was speaking at a teen center, and I had sponsors, and I was giving the book away to teenagers, throughout the Detroit area and throughout other cities, and now today I have folks on LinkedIn who are doctors who still remember me from that teen center discussion. Mm-hmm. I remember, Benji, I said this, and I can't get it out my mind for the life of me. This was probably 10 years ago, man. I was walking to the Detroit Public Library, and there was a young girl who I saw. She was there when I spoke, and I was giving the books to those there, and she had tears in her. She just came up and she hugged me. And I was like, well, I'm thinking she might have been in danger. I mean, I'm like, are you okay? Yeah, I remember your face. And said to me, with tears in her eyes, how much the book meant to her, and how life-changing it was for her. I don't think she couldn't have been more than like 13, 14 years old. And I remember in that moment, I said, if I don't sell another book, this has all been worth it. So here we are now, many moons later, with the opportunity to get it out there. I'm just reinvigorated and recharged. But I just remember that moment, man. I don't know if I'll ever see that girl ever again. I hope that whatever she's doing, she's changing the world for the better, and I believe that she is. That's just the kind of person I am. But that's the inspiration right there. And again, I told myself in that moment, if I never sold one more copy, this was probably why I still wrote the book.
Yeah.
Because you can't. What are you gonna do? Like, if you were able to change somebody's life like that, what are you? How are you gonna get upset about sales?
Yeah.
If you see that, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, I'm thankful that this book has been given a second chance. And it's not because it was ever inadequate. It just wasn't. It just didn't have the firepower behind it that I believe it has now. But man, I'm just thankful, and I'm very confident in what it will do for people, man. And so that's what this year to me is all about: doing whatever I can to make certain that anybody else who has these kind of questions, they have a way of getting them answered.
I'm going to say it one last time to re-impress it. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. Check out his personal website, iDesignSolutions.org. Pick up your copies of Real World 101 Student Guide by Alcott Germany II. This is something you need to add to your shelf and a valuable resource to just get lost in. Alcott, this has been a true pleasure, man, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
I mean, my heart is just jumping out of the chest right now, and I couldn't thank you more. There's just no way to thank you enough, Benji, for this opportunity, and thank you for allowing this book to have a platform and for me to have a platform.